My name is Lillian Lennox, and I am 38 years old. I used to think I was a simple woman. I worked in data analytics, made good money, lived below my means, and believed that if you were honest, consistent, and loyal, life would eventually meet you halfway. I didn't chase extravagance. I didn't believe in quick wins. I believed in patience, structure, and planning for a future that didn't collapse the first time someone got greedy. The most complicated thing about me wasn't my personality. It was my money. Long before I ever met Kenny, I had built an investment portfolio worth a little over $1.2 million. It wasn't inheritance. It wasn't luck. It was stock options from a startup I worked at in my 20s, paired with 15 years of aggressive saving and conservative investing. Index funds, low fees, long-term growth, no drama. That money was my safety net, my retirement, my proof that I could take care of myself. Kenny and I had been together for 5 years. We weren't married, but our lives were blended in all the ways that mattered: shared bills, shared routines, shared plans. We had a joint checking account for daily expenses, but we kept our major assets separate. I never questioned that arrangement. Neither did he. Until his mother moved in. Carolyn, 62, had come to stay with us after a minor surgery. 2 weeks, they said, just until she healed. By week 6, she was still there and she had opinions. Carolyn liked to remind people she'd flipped a condo in the mid-2000s. She didn't mention losing everything in the crash. She watched finance influencers on YouTube and spoke in buzzwords like explosive growth and sleeping capital. She asked invasive questions masked as concern. One night, Kenny sat me down with her at the dining table. "Lillian, honey," he said gently, "we need to talk about our future." I already knew what was coming. Carolyn leaned forward. I smelled her cheap perfume before she spoke. "I've been reviewing your numbers." My blood went cold. "My numbers." Kenny wouldn't meet my eyes. "I might have mentioned the size of your portfolio. Mom thinks you're being too passive." Carolyn nodded solemn. "Your returns are pitiful. I could double it in 18 months if you'd just let me manage it." That was when Kenny's voice hardened. "Stop being difficult, Lillian. This is for us." Then came the sentence that ended everything, though they didn't know it yet. "My mother is our new financial advisor. We've decided. Give her all your investment passwords." I looked at them. I saw the greed, the entitlement, the quiet assumption that what I built was theirs to take. And I smiled. I said I was relieved. I said I was grateful. I said I'd organize everything properly. Inside, something went completely still. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about survival. That night, after Kenny and his mother went to bed, I stayed awake on the couch with my laptop balanced on my knees. The TV muted the house, finally quiet. From the hallway, I could hear Carolyn's soft snoring, steady and confident, the sound of a woman who believed she had already won. Kenny had kissed my forehead before turning in, murmuring something about how proud he was that I was finally seeing reason. I smiled back at him too. As soon as the bedroom door closed, I opened my phone and called my lawyer. Her name was Rachel Coleman, and she'd helped me years ago when I rolled over my old startup 401k into my personal brokerage account. She was efficient, calm, and most importantly, immune to emotional manipulation. She answered on the second ring. "Lillian, everything okay?" I didn't waste time. I need an irrevocable trust. Immediately. There was a pause, just long enough for her to register the urgency in my voice. "Okay," she said carefully. "That's not usually a midnight call. What's going on?" I stared at the dark reflection of myself in the TV screen. Hostile breakup incoming. I need to protect my premarital assets today, not tomorrow. Today. Rachel exhaled slowly. "All right, walk me through what you want." I did. Every detail, every fear, every line I refused to let them cross. The entire brokerage account would be transferred into the trust. All of it. Principal holdings, everything. The trust would be managed by an independent third-party fiduciary, no family members, no loopholes. All dividends, interest, and gains would be automatically reinvested. No withdrawals, no income distributions. Kenny would be listed as the sole beneficiary. Rachel stopped me there. "Lillian, you know that means—" "I do," I said. "Let me finish." Kenny would receive nothing, no access, no control, no early distributions, and then there would be one and only one payout clause. Rachel was silent as I explained it. When I finished, she didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. Finally, she said slowly, "Lillian, this is ruthless." I closed my eyes. "It's defensive." She gave a quiet, humorless laugh. "All right, it's legal. It's ironclad. And once it's done, you can't undo it even if you wanted to." "I don't want to," I said. We worked for 2 hours. By the time we hung up, the documents were drafted, the transfer scheduled for first thing in the morning, and the meeting with Kenny and his mother set for the following Tuesday. They thought they were coming to sign management paperwork and receive passwords. They had no idea they were walking into a locked vault. The next morning, I played my role perfectly. I made coffee for Carolyn, listened politely as she rambled about biotech stocks and market cycles she didn't understand. I nodded while Kenny squeezed my hand under the table, proud, relieved, smug. I even suggested we make it official. If we're doing this, I said lightly, we should do it right. Lawyers document signatures. This is serious money. Carolyn puffed up immediately. Exactly. Professionalism. Respect. She talked about needing a new laptop, maybe special software. I smiled and said we'd discuss it after the paperwork. Inside, I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness. Just clarity. By Tuesday, the trust was fully funded. My entire financial future was no longer technically mine. And for the first time in weeks, I slept like a child. They were coming for passwords. I was about to hand them something far more permanent. The lawyer's office was exactly what Carolyn expected it to be. Dark wood, glass walls, leather chairs that smelled expensive. She arrived overdressed and overconfident, wearing a structured blazer with exaggerated shoulders and carrying a leather-bound folio like a prop in a play where she was the lead. Kenny was practically vibrating beside her. He leaned over and whispered, "You did the right thing, Lillian. This is going to change everything for us." I nodded, soft and agreeable the way he now expected me to be. Rachel was already seated at the long conference table when we walked in. She wasn't alone. Beside her sat an older man in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Carolyn's entire outfit. He had silver hair, calm eyes, and the faint look of someone who had spent a lifetime watching people underestimate him. Kenny frowned slightly. "Who's this?" Rachel smiled politely. "This is Martin Hale, senior partner in our estate planning division." Carolyn didn't wait for introductions. "Perfect," she said briskly, setting her folio on the table. "I've prepared a preliminary acquisition list we'll want to act on immediately once I have control of the accounts." She slid a single sheet of paper forward. Martin glanced at it once, then slid it back without touching it. "That won't be necessary." Carolyn blinked. "Excuse me." Rachel folded her hands. "We're not here to discuss strategy. We're here to finalize documents." Kenny beamed at me. "See official." Rachel turned to him. "Kenny Lillian has taken proactive steps to secure her financial future and by extension yours." I watched his smile widen. "She has created an irrevocable trust and has already transferred her entire premarital brokerage portfolio into it." Carolyn clapped once, delighted. "A trust smart, very smart, tax efficient, protective. I approve." Kenny squeezed my hand. "I knew you'd come around." Rachel didn't return the smile. "The trust is managed by an independent fiduciary, Mr. Hale's firm." Carolyn's expression faltered. "But I'm the advisor." "You inspired the trust," I said gently. "This is because of you. You taught me how important protection is." She straightened, pleased again. "Exactly." Rachel continued, "Per the trust's terms, all income, dividends, and gains are reinvested into the principal. No withdrawals are permitted." Kenny's smile flickered. "Wait, no withdrawals at all." "Long-term growth," I said calmly. "Buy and hold." Carolyn leaned forward. "So when does Kenny get access?" Rachel glanced at Martin. Martin adjusted his glasses and opened the document. "There is a single payout clause." Kenny relaxed. "Okay, good. The trust will dissolve and distribute its entire principal plus all accrued gains upon the satisfaction of one condition." Carolyn nodded, naturally. Martin cleared his throat. "Distribution will occur upon receipt of a legally certified death certificate for Carolyn Price, mother of the beneficiary." The room went silent. Kenny stared at Martin, unblinking. Carolyn's face drained of color, then flushed red, then purple. What did you just say?" I folded my hands on the table. "You're the asset, Carolyn. The longer you live, the more the portfolio grows. Kenny benefits every year you stay healthy." Kenny's chair scraped loudly as he stood. "Lillian, what is this?" "Incentive alignment," I said calmly. "It's basic finance." Carolyn started shaking. "You're wishing me dead." "No," I said. "I'm wishing you a long life. A very long one." Kenny turned on me. "This is sick." I met his eyes. "You asked for my passwords? This is what protection looks like." Carolyn grabbed her chest. "My heart this stress," Kenny shouted. "Change it, undo this now." Rachel's voice cut through the chaos. "It's irrevocable." I stood up. "Thank you for your time." Kenny was yelling as I walked out. Carolyn was sobbing. The sound echoed down the hallway. I didn't look back. I didn't go home after the meeting. I'd packed a bag that morning without thinking too much about it, slipping clothes and my laptop into a carry-on like I was preparing for a work trip instead of the quiet demolition of my personal life. I checked into a hotel across town, ordered room service, and turned my phone face down on the nightstand. When I finally flipped it over an hour later, it was already vibrating. Missed calls, text messages, voicemails stacking on top of one another like waves hitting a breakwater that wasn't going to move. Kenny started first, confused, angry, pleading. Lillian, pick up. This isn't funny. We need to talk. You went too far. My mom is hysterical. What were you thinking? Carolyn followed soon after. Her messages were less restrained. Accusations, threats, voice memos filled with shaking breath and outrage calling me cruel, unstable, dangerous. I listened to one, just one, then I blocked her. The next few days were quiet in the way only the aftermath of a storm can be quiet. I worked remotely. I ate when I remembered. I slept better than I had in months. Somewhere in that stillness, the shock wore off, and something harder settled in its place. Resolve. The retaliation started on day 3. First came the smear campaign. Carolyn called everyone she could think of. Kenny's extended family, mutual friends, even my workplace. She painted me as manipulative, abusive, mentally unwell. According to her version, I had financially trapped her son and placed a death clause on her life. It didn't land the way she expected. My manager forwarded me an email she'd sent and added a single line beneath it, handled. Focus on your project. Also great job on the quarterly model. My parents were worse for her. My mother called me furious. Not at me. At them. She tried to steal your future, and now she's shocked you locked the door. Don't you dare feel guilty. Feel. The legal threat came next. A letter arrived at the hotel from a small firm with an aggressively worded header. It accused me of emotional distress, fraudulent conveyance, and demanded that I dissolve the trust and surrender half the portfolio plus damages. Rachel responded with one sentence. We look forward to deposing your clients regarding their financial credentials and their demand for account passwords. They never replied. The final attempt was Kenny himself. He showed up at my house one afternoon while I was there with a locksmith changing the locks. I shouldn't have opened the door. I know that now. He looked wrecked. Red eyes, wrinkled clothes. He cried immediately. I'm sorry, Lillian. I was wrong. My mom pushed me. I never wanted this. I listened. I let him talk. Then I said quietly, You sat at that table. You called me difficult. You asked for my passwords. He reached for me. I love you. Let's fix this. Counseling. Whatever it takes. Just undo the trust. There it was. I stepped back. It's irrevocable. The tears stopped instantly. So you won't even try. I met his gaze. You already chose money over me. I'm just finishing the process. He left angry. The next day, Rachel filed the paperwork. The paperwork moved faster than I expected. Once the filing was in, everything else seemed to fall away with it, like a structure that had been hollow for a long time, finally giving in to gravity. There were no dramatic court scenes, no shouting matches in front of a judge. Just documents, signatures, and a quiet administrative end to a relationship I had once believed would last. Kenny didn't fight it. Not really. There wasn't much he could do. The house was mine, purchased years before we met, solely in my name. The investment portfolio was premarital and now sealed inside an irrevocable trust that even I couldn't touch. The only shared assets were the joint checking account and some furniture. That was it. The judge reviewed the case, skimmed the trust documents, and listened patiently as Kenny's attorney tried to frame the situation as emotional cruelty rather than financial self-defense. It didn't stick. The ruling was swift, clean. Kenny walked away with his personal savings and half of what little we'd jointly accumulated. Nothing more. But the real consequences weren't legal. They were psychological. I found out about it through Linda, Carolyn's sister. She called me a few weeks later, her voice low and embarrassed, apologizing for everything that had happened. She told me Kenny had moved back in with his mother. And that's when the trap finally snapped shut. According to Linda, Kenny had become attentive. Unnaturally so. He called his mother constantly, 5, sometimes 6 times a day. He reminded her to take her vitamins, sent her articles about heart health, pressured her into doctor appointments she didn't want. Carolyn noticed. She noticed the way he watched her now, not with affection, but calculation. Every cough made him tense. Every skipped meal made him hover. She stopped eating food he prepared, stopped drinking anything she hadn't poured herself. One night she told Linda in tears that she felt like she wasn't a mother anymore. She was a number, a living, breathing asset. Kenny, meanwhile, was trapped too. Every year his mother stayed alive, the trust grew. Every birthday she celebrated added another layer of resentment. He needed her healthy, but not too healthy. Present, but never independent enough to leave. They were locked together by the very greed that had brought them to my table, demanding passwords. As for me, I changed the locks. I repainted the office they'd torn apart. I put my papers back where they belonged. I lost a relationship I thought was built on partnership. That part still hurt. I won't pretend otherwise. But my future was intact. My boundaries were intact. And the noise, the constant pressure, the entitlement, the manipulation was gone. I wasn't a hero. I was just a woman who refused to hand over her life savings to people who saw her as a resource instead of